Hey guys, it's Hayes with CheatSheetPros.com. Today is February 10th, Thursday. We're going to take a look at some college basketball betting picks. Today's the day we let everybody play with our cheat sheets for free in our Facebook group. Thursday is free premium day, so if you'd like to try those out, the link is in the description. As always, we're going to do a lot more videos in 2022, so make sure to subscribe below. This is one of the first places that we do drop content. So typically when I do my videos, I walk through my sheet and kind of show you my process, because what I want to do, you've heard that saying, teach a man to fish, he eats for a lifetime, or give a man a fish, he eats for a day. I'm trying to teach you guys how you can take these sheets, run with it, and pick up plays. I try to put up a few every day, but I usually don't have time to run through every single game. I typically stick to top 100 teams because I do a lot with fantasy, other sports, player props, and so it just eats up a lot of time. So let's go ahead and get started. So looking at the cheat sheet today, as always, one of the first things we want to do is look at the line column over here and compare it to our consensus average between our three models. And so I'm just going to look at the difference between these two, and I'm going to go down and earmark games that I want to look at a little further. So flipping down here, and these are the game numbers over here. So we'll say game 1, game 2, game 3. So looking at game 1, Zaga, minus 32. We got it at minus 42. It's basically going to be a blowout. It's just whether or not they get up to cover the spread. This game's minus 6. We got minus 12. So that's one you could look at. Purdue is opened at 3.5. We got it at minus 9.5, minus 10. So that's a game that we want to look at. That's going to be game number 3. So we're going to earmark that one. Game number 4 is Duke and Clemson. And so this line opened at 7.5. It's already down to 6, which I'm assuming it's because Clemson plays really good at home. They're 7-3 against the spread for a 70% cover rate. But we're going to take a look at it because we have this at Duke is about 11.5 points better. So that's a significant difference than the line of 6. If it was at 7.5, I'd probably look the other way. But now it's down to 6. So now we're getting in that 5, 6, 7 difference mark. Looking down, Iowa, Maryland, 3.5 to 7.5. That's not enough for me. We got Oregon, Stanford, 8.5. We got it at 6.5. That's too close. This is just an error. If there's a space in this, it pulls it the half a point. So St. Mary's, San Diego, I looked at that game. I didn't really love it. UAB's minus 23. We got minus 32. So that's a game to take a look at. Southern Mississippi is terrible, as you can see. They're 3-9 against the spread, and UAB is 9-3 against the spread at home. However, that's not one of the games that made my top list of plays. Game number 9 is going to be another game that I want to earmark and look into. It's Pepperdine at San Francisco. You can see we got 7-18 versus 19-6, a significant difference in our power rankings. Now, San Francisco, well, neither team really has been great against the spread, but this is a game that I want to earmark and take a look at just because offense and defensive ratings, we have a significant difference for San Francisco. Line's 18.5. We got it at 20. You could say 25. We'll go ahead and bump that one up. And then another game I'm going to earmark is Murray State at Tennessee. You can see against the spread, they're both kind of like so-so, 40 to 65, nothing great. Murray State is on the road. At home, they've been really great. They're kind of 50-50 on the road. But again, we've got Murray State at 22-2 facing Tennessee State, which is 10-14. So we got the number 25 versus the number 302nd power-rated team. So that's something that interests me. Line's 14.5. We got it at 26.5 or 27. So we've got it almost double the spread. So that's one I want to take a look at. BYU kind of jumped out a little bit, but I end up going away from that game. And then just flipping down through here. And typically my first run, I'm just looking at these two. So South Dakota State, Denver. When you get into some of these games, it gets kind of tricky. You really want to kind of be careful what you do. Ohio at Central Michigan jumps out at me. We've got a huge discrepancy over here. We got 95 versus 321. 19-4 Ohio versus 6-14 Central Michigan. And then neither team great against the spread. Nothing in the green here that really jumps out. So I'm basically looking at the road, looking at the home, and looking at the overall, seeing if there's any trends that pop. Central Michigan's really bad offensively and defensively. Ohio, I follow them. They've been a great overplay, which you can see they're 10-2 at home, but on the road, they're the complete opposite. They're an 8-1 underplay. but they've got a decent defense and a decent offense compared to the MAC, which is what they play in. So they're 150, 200 spots higher on both of these. So line opened at 12.5, 13.5. We got it at minus 21.5. So that's a game we want to take a look at. Flipping down some of these other games, nothing really jumped out, I believe. I did find, let me see if I can find it in here, the two that popped up when looking at the early money and movements. So I'll show you the other step that I do. So Middle Tennessee is one of them. I didn't get a chance to look at it here. So line opened at 6, 5.5, at 6.5. So our model does not like this, but this is one game that got a ton of money on Middle Tennessee, and I looked into it and I really liked it. So I'm going to show you that game. So typically what I will do, let me make sure you can see this, and you can pull up Vegas Insider or sites like this where it shows the money, tickets, picks, all that stuff. I'll flip down through here in the morning so you can see Arkansas State and Troy. We got a 9-9 game. This column is cash, this column is tickets. So I call it a 9-9 when we get over 90% on both. Again, it's really early, so you need to be careful, but like this game, I'll flip down through these. So Old Dominion and Middle Tennessee. Ah, crap, I didn't mean to click that. So let me flip back over here and let it connect. All right, Old Dominion and Middle Tennessee. Oh, my computer's running behind on me. Where did you go? Okay, here we are, right here. I'll try not to click it, just highlight it. So it opened at 7. It moved down to 5.5 towards Old Dominion. So I want to make sure that someone's not ruled out for a Middle Tennessee State. But we got an 8-9 game, so 86% of the cash, 90% of the tickets. But it's early, so this could be a very small amount of tickets. But it's a game that tells me I want to look into it. And if I like it, keep an eye on it throughout the day. Now, you can see the same thing here with Elon. Some of these other games, they get a lot of one-sided action, but I look into it and I'm like, nope. I just kind of throw it out. But Middle Tennessee did jump out at me as a game that I do like. So looking at it here, we got 9-14 versus 15-7. Middle Tennessee is 10-0 at home, and they are 6-2 against the spread and 14-5 against the spread on the season. And then you can see Old Dominion directly above it is 41% against the spread. So we have a good team that's against the spread. They're playing at home. They're stellar at home. Playing not really good Conference USA team. So this is one where the model does not like it, but it's one that I looked into and that I did like. And I think we looked at San Francisco above. So, and I'll just flip down through here, and they're in order on this sheet. So I got it posted today so you guys can play with it. So they're in order by the highest power ranking. So if the number one team's playing, they're going to be at the top, and then they're going to go down. I didn't like doing the time slot just because you got a lot of crap teams playing early. I wanted to be able to hit the top 25 games and then work down. So that is how I use the sheet to kind of look down. So when you see me post games and I say, hey, Pepperdine's 0-9 on the road, this is where I'm getting the numbers at. I'm pulling them off the sheet. So these are against the spread numbers. This is how they do in the total, neutral sites. We got their adjusted offensive, defensive rankings and whatnot. So that's how I pull games off of the sheet. And then I flip through and I look for any 9-9 games. Like here's Ohio. This is one that we had talked about. Open 11.5, 13.5, and it's a 9-9 game, so it's one we wanted to take a look at. So I'm going to move this over. So once I earmark these games that I want to look at, I'm going to pull them up side by side. Here, I'll just close this to make it easier to see. And I want to go look at the actual game. So I already had San Francisco pulled up because I just got done looking at it. So we'll start at San Francisco. So San Francisco's playing Pepperdine. So I want to pull them up, and I want to look at the schedules side by side. And I want to see, kind of how they've played the games. Now, these videos are a little loaded. I'm showing you games that I've already looked at. So I've looked at about 25 games, and I've narrowed it down to about 5. So if you want to see the reasons I throw stuff out, I can tell you that. But the ones, I'm going to show you the stuff that I like and why I get here with a game. So San Francisco, I followed them quite a bit this year. They've been doing really good for the conference they're in. They're 4th in the WCC. They got a 19-6 record. And then they're going up against Pepperdine, who's 10th in the WCC with a 7-18 record. Pepperdine's just a bad team this year. You can see how many games here they've lost in a row. So what is that? 8, 9. So they did beat Pacific their last game at home. So they're 1-9 over the last 10 games. What jumps out at me is they just played San Francisco, and Pepperdine was at home, and they lost 71-45 in that game. So they lost by 26 points. So I do a lot of first half plays because if they do bad the first half, I can get a very favorable line in the second half. And so I'm going to look here, and this is going to be real hard for you to see, but San Francisco was up 33-20 at halftime, and then they outscored them 38-25 in the second half. So they just completely dominated them. So I do like San Francisco as a play here. Now the line's 18.5. That's kind of high. So if I can get that first half line less than 10, that's one I'm probably going to look at. But you can do first half line or game line. I think either one is good. Looking at the other games here, let me see if there's anything that jumps out. So both teams have played St. Mary's. So St. Mary's blew out Pepperdine. They lost to Pepperdine, or lost to San Francisco, but it was a tight game. They crushed Pepperdine on the road. Zaga is okay. They played a tight game with BYU. They haven't played BYU. And I don't think there's a lot of matching games. Portland blew them out. They beat Portland once and then lost by 1 point. So San Francisco's the play here. That's kind of a straight obvious one that we're going to go with. So we got that one marked. Let me show you the Middle Tennessee, because that's one that we found on the 9-9 games that didn't show up on the sheet, but it's a game that's really growing on me. And again, just make sure all the players are in. There's not someone significantly ruled out. I typically start looking at that stuff after lunch, but when we're looking at Middle Tennessee, they're great at home. I love college teams playing at home. They're playing Old Dominion. So first thing I'm going to do is flip through here and see, have they already played Old Dominion once? So I flip through here, and I'm not going to go all the way back to the beginning. I want to see like the last 5 to 10 games. So they haven't played Old Dominion yet. So now I'm going to look and see if there's any comparison teams where these two have played. So one of the ones that first jumps out is Florida Atlantic. So Middle Tennessee beat Florida Atlantic 70-57. If they win by double digits, I call it a blowout in my head. Florida Atlantic beat them by almost 20. So you have a team here that crushed Florida Atlantic, and then that same team crushed the Old Dominion team. So that's one red flag. Western Kentucky is another one that jumps out. So they won 93-85 right here. And then they got beat by 16 by Western Kentucky. So now I'm starting to like Middle Tennessee a lot more. They lost to UAB. UAB is a really good team. They can really rack up some points, so I'm not really worried about that. UTSA, they beat by 9. UTSA, they actually won quite a while ago, so that's decent for them. They lost by 4 to Rice. They lost by almost double digits to Rice. So the main ones that jump out at me are Western Kentucky and Florida Atlantic. Middle Tennessee thumped them, and then those teams came here and thumped Old Dominion. So I like Middle Tennessee. For some damn reason, the line is only 5.5. I was blown away at that. I figured this line would at least be double digits, so that's one of my favorite games so far that I like. To me, that just seems obvious. So I'm going to make sure nobody's ruled out, but Middle Tennessee is going to be one of my favorite plays so far today. I got a lot of plays I could go over. I'm going to try to keep this somewhat short. So Ohio is another game that popped on our sheet. So that's a game that I want to go in and take a look at. And there's so many college games, it's almost impossible to do this with every single team. So I really use the cheat sheet to narrow down the games that pop, and then those are the ones I can go dig into. All right, so now we're looking at Ohio at Central Michigan. The line on this one is 13.5, and I had put an earmark to look at a possible first half line here. So I want to see if they've played Central Michigan. So that game got postponed, so they don't have any game against them. And then flipping down through here, Western Michigan. So they beat them by 13, and then they also beat Western Michigan by 10. Toledo they lost to, but Toledo's a good team. They did not play Toledo. Eastern Michigan, they blew out. Eastern Michigan really thumped Central Michigan 99-68, so that's a point over here for Ohio. Ball State, they really beat on. They took Ball State into overtime, and then they crushed them by 24 points. Buffalo, they beat by 20, and then Buffalo just beat them by 20. So you can kind of see we're leaning Ohio more. Now, Ohio is on the road, so I want to go back and look at their recent road games and kind of see how they did. So they beat Buffalo by 20 on the road. And then they beat Miami, Ohio by several on the road. They beat Akron on the road. So losing to Toledo is not a big deal. Toledo's a good team, so we do like Ohio here. And I'm probably going to look at a first half play. Anytime I get in that 11 to 18 or higher in that range, I like to look and see if I could get a much lower line in the first half. And if you follow my Twitter, you'll see several games where I posted, hey, first half line, they were up 20, but then the game spread, they were only up 6. So a lot of teams will really lay up in the second half, and that's frustrating if you let in a backdoor cover. And then if they do bad in the first half, then you can flip it around and hammer this second half play and take care of it. Murray State's the next game I want to take a look at, and then we'll look at 2 top 25 games, and then I will save the rest for you guys so that you can look at the cheat sheets and play with them today. And as always, post in the comments, or if you're in the Facebook group, post in the group, hey, I found this play, this is what I saw. Everybody uses the cheat sheets a little bit differently, and some of you guys find great plays, and sometimes they're different than mine, and that's perfectly fine. So looking at this, Murray State really jumps out at me. The line's 14.5. I'm really going to look at a first half line here. Tennessee State, I just know from experience they are a terrible team. So flipping back through here, they did play Tennessee State back on January 13th, and they beat them 67-44. So they absolutely killed them. And then I want to see what was the halftime score, So they were up 35-16 at the half, and then look at the second half. This is a perfect example. The second half, they only outscored them by 4. It was 32-28, but they absolutely annihilated them in the first half. So the first half line is what I really want to focus on here, just because, they were wrecking them. So Murray State is clearly a better team. Our model likes it. It popped on the sheet. They've already played once, so that's something that jumps out at me. Now, they are on the road, but they're so much better. I'm not as worried about that. And for this one, I really don't even need to look at common opponents. If my models have it covering, they've already played once and covered, and then the line is less than that, then it's probably a play I'm going to go with. But just for shits and giggles, let's take a look here. So Edwardsville, they beat by 20. They beat Edwardsville by 5. Austin Peay, they beat by 12. Austin Peay, they beat by 4. Morehead State, they beat by 11. They got beat by more than 11 to Morehead State. Tennessee Tech, they beat them by 5 and then annihilated them. And then they also annihilated Tennessee Tech. UT Martin, they beat by 8. They also beat by 8. So you can kind of see how, looking back and forth, you kind of get a feel for some of the games they like. But Murray State first half I like. That should be a no-brainer play today. And then let's look at 2 others that I'm not going to go over but had a lot of money on were Cleveland State -10, and I was kind of so-so on that. And then Appalachian State -6, which they're playing Georgia Southern. They just beat Georgia Southern on the road 70-62, so by 8. And now they get to face them at home, so they should be able to win that game by 8-10. The line's 6, so it's close, so that's not one I'm going to waste your time going over. So right now we've got San Francisco, Middle Tennessee, Ohio, Murray State. So let's look at some top 25 games. So Purdue is one that jumped out on the sheet for us. So let's take a look at Purdue. We get a really low line here today at -3. Now they are on the road at Michigan, and they typically play these games pretty close. So this is one I want to pay attention to. But I feel better about bigger name schools when you get into some of these lines. The smaller schools are kind of all over the place. It gets a little wacky. So here, Purdue's playing really good. They've won 6 in a row. They just beat Illinois at home. They just played Michigan at home and beat them 82-76. So it was a 6-point game. And then now they got to go on the road to Michigan. They crushed Minnesota. They squeaked by Ohio State. They thumped Iowa by 10. They beat Northwestern by 20. Lost to Indiana by 3 on the road. And then on the road, they went to double overtime against Illinois. So Purdue's playing great right now. Let's look at Michigan. So Michigan, they beat Penn State, who's not that good, by 1 on the road. They lost on the road to Purdue, but they actually played them really well. 82-76 is not that bad of a game. They beat Nebraska by 6. And then, let's see, Purdue crushed Nebraska. Michigan State, they hung with for a little bit and then got blown out. Barely beat Northwestern 72-70 at home. and then Purdue beat them by 20 at home. So that's a point over there for Purdue. They did beat Indiana, and then Indiana beat them, so we're getting a lot of kind of back and forth here. I do like Purdue -3, just the model spits it out that it's a higher spread, so I like getting some of these top 25 games in there. Now, Purdue is on the road, but they're ranked number 3 in the polls right now, so I like them to come in and get this game. I mean, they just beat them. They were at home 82-76, but we're only laying 3. If it was 5 or 6, I'd probably stay away from it. You can see Purdue is up 39-33 at the half, and then they played a tight game, 43-43 in the second half. So I lean Purdue here. They're 20-3 versus Michigan. That's 11-9. So that's one of the top 25 games that I like. And then for our last one, before we wrap this up, let's go ahead and take a look at Duke. So Duke is one of the plays that popped on the sheet, so I want to take a look at the games and see kind of, do we like it? Now, Duke is laying more points. They're laying 6. So this is one that we want to look into. So the first thing I see, Clemson has a lot of losses in here. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So they're 2-6 over their last 8 games. They have losses to, they got crushed by Notre Dame. They got beat by Boston College. They got crushed by Syracuse. They just played Duke. So that's an indicator at Duke, and it was 71-69. So they played them pretty close. So that might be enough for us to fade this game. But then they beat Florida State, who's not that good, and they lost to a bad Georgia Tech team. And then they hung with North Carolina, losing only by 2 at home. So that's somewhat impressive for Clemson. Virginia just knocked off Duke. I wasn't aware of that. I didn't catch that one. They beat North Carolina by 20, and then North Carolina beat Clemson, so that's kind of a flag, and they were on the road for this win. And then they crushed Notre Dame, and let's see, Notre Dame crushed Clemson. And then Louisville, they beat by 9. They have not played Louisville. Clemson was a 2-point win at home, so they played that one pretty close. And they blew Syracuse out, and then Syracuse blew Clemson out. So I'm kind of torn on this game. I think it could go either way. The fact that it's at Clemson, and Clemson's already played them once and hung within 2 kind of worries me a little bit. But I still lean Duke here minus the 6 points. I mean, our model's spitting it out that Duke's going to cover the 6, and some of these recent games here with them blowing out North Carolina, blowing out Notre Dame, Louisville. I mean, since that game with Clemson, they've went on the road on 3 games and done really well. Now, they did return home, lose to Virginia, but now they're going on the road to Clemson. I think 6 is a fair spread, but I lean Duke here, and I'm just going to go with the model and take that. So anyway, you guys play with the sheets, see what games you like. The ones that I'm definitely going to bet are Middle Tennessee State, San Francisco, and Ohio, and Murray State, probably first half lines. And I'm going to do something with Purdue and Duke. I might do a 2-team parlay or something, put half a unit on it. Not really sure yet, but hope you guys liked the video. Subscribe down below, and let's go make some money.